Hey there, and welcome to True Terror Tales. Before we get into the story, I would like to ask if any of you have a story you would like to be told. You can send the story through the link in the description. Number 1. My name is Chris, and this story unfolds on a quiet, dark night when I found myself driving alone through the countryside. The road seemed to stretch endlessly before me, bordered by towering trees. My headlights pierced the darkness, but beyond their reach, the night was impenetrable. The only sounds were the soft hum of my engine and the occasional rustle of leaves. As I continued down the road, I noticed a car parked on the side of the road. It was an old, worn-out sedan, hazard lights blinking, casting an eerie glow into the night. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to pull over to check if the driver needed assistance. I approached cautiously. The driver's side door was wide open, and I called out, asking if everything was all right. There was no response. I peered inside and found the driver's seat empty. The car's engine was still running. It was then that I heard a faint cry for help, distant but unmistakable, coming from the woods just beyond the road. My heart raced as I followed the sound, flashlight in hand, slicing through the darkness. The cries led me to a small clearing, and there, in the center of it, was a young woman, injured and terrified. She explained that she had been driving when a man in another car began aggressively tailing her. Panicked, she had pulled over, and the man had pursued her into the woods. We immediately called the police, who arrived quickly, apprehending the man who had been stalking her. As the flashing blue and red lights cut through the night, I couldn't help but feel that if I hadn't stopped to investigate that abandoned car, the woman might never have been found. Number 2. My name is Sam, and my story happened to me about a year ago. It was a dark night, and I was driving on a narrow, twisty road far from any town. My car's headlights were the only things lighting up the way, and it was hard to see anything beyond the road, and started falling heavily, making the road slippery. My car's tires had a tough time gripping the wet surface. I hadn't seen another car or a signal on my phone for a long while. As I turned a sharp corner, I saw someone standing on the road up ahead. I hit the brakes hard, my heart racing. It was a man, all wet from the rain and wearing a hood that hid his face. I rolled down my window a bit and asked if he needed help. He said his car had broken down and he'd been walking for a long time. He looked anxious and his eyes darted around nervously. I was unsure but decided to help. He got into my car, still wet from the rain. He gave me directions, but they seemed confusing, and we were getting farther away from any houses or people. The man started acting strangely, muttering strange things. I began feeling uneasy about the situation. I assumed he was drunk or on drugs, and suddenly, he turned to me with an angry look and demanded my wallet and car keys. I refused, and that's when he pulled out a knife. I slammed on the brakes, jumped out of the car, and ran into the rainy night. I heard the man swearing and then my car speeding away. Alone in the dark, I stumbled through the woods looking for help. Hours later, I found a small cabin and told the people there what had happened. They called the police, who later found my car and the man had left it behind. The whole experience left me very scared, a reminder that even a seemingly normal late-night drive can turn into a nightmare. It was a scary experience that I would never forget.
Number 3. This story took place when I first started driving. My nan lived a few states over and my mom had just kicked me out of my house for reasons I cannot say. I had to have a 7-hour drive, so I packed my belongings and set off. It was very late and foggy, with minimal cars on the road except a few trucks, and that was it. About in 2 hours and my check engine light lit up. I didn't think much of it and was just going to get it checked out the next day at a mechanic near my nan's. Then, boom. Something blew, so I instantly pulled over and switched on my hazards. I was unsure of what to do, so I called my dad to pick me up, and I said that I would leave the next morning. He reluctantly agreed, so I had to wait in my cold car for a few hours. An hour and nothing. Another hour, nothing. Then, a car pulled in behind me with 2 large males stepping out and making their way towards me. One knocked on my window, so I rolled it down and he said what seems to be the issue. I replied, "Nothing much, my dad is on his way to help me now." Then the men walked away and I was sat on my phone scrolling Instagram. After a few minutes, I checked my lights and noticed that their car hadn't moved. Also, I couldn't see anyone around it. I was disturbed but kept to myself. After literally putting my head back down, I heard a smash next to me. I looked and saw one of the guys from earlier with a bat in his hand trying to make his way into my car. I screamed and fled out of my car and started bolting it down the highway. They chased after me, but they soon lost their stamina. I called my dad and told him everything while sobbing. He was only 5 minutes away, so I waited patiently until I saw him. Luckily, those guys never came back after me, and I still wonder what they would have done to me if I didn't escape in time.